everybody. So today is day 2 of IVF. It's Tuesday. I haven't done my injection yet today. I still have a few hours until I have to do my injection. If you watched my video from IVF day 1, I am a little bit nervous about how today is going to go, only because after you use the Lupron for the first time, then it has to be refrigerated, and the pharmacist said if I take it out of the fridge 15 to 20 minutes before I have to do the injection, then it probably won't burn, but it can have like a burning sensation when I actually do the injection if it's too cold, which doesn't like negatively affect the injection in my body in any way. It's just a comfort thing. So I am a little bit nervous about that. I think I am going to video it, and you guys will see how I feel. So yesterday, I felt totally fine. After a couple of hours, I had goosebumps, and I was also sweating at the same time. So, you know, fun hormones. That kind of same thing happened to me when I was actually pregnant. I felt like I was a sweaty mess all the time when I was pregnant. So I should have expected that, but I felt fine. I was a little bit tender. It's the tiniest bit tender today, but hardly at all. It was really just like 3 hours after the injection yesterday. But I felt really good, and I feel really good today. I'm trying to remind myself to drink more water, so I have my Perrier, because I'm not a huge water drinker. It's hard for me to stay on top of it and make sure that I am drinking enough water. So I'm trying to be better today. I'm also limiting my caffeine, which was a suggestion they made. And I actually started limiting my caffeine a few weeks ago to like help with that transition. But I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how I qualified to be a surrogate, because there are quite a few steps that you have to go through. And for anyone who's thinking about being a surrogate, or on like the intended parent side, if you're thinking about getting a surrogate but maybe you're nervous and you're thinking how can I trust a stranger to carry my baby, we have to go through a lot of steps. But that is why I think working with an agency is really great, because you do have to go through all of these steps. When you're independent, it's literally like I've seen people meet up on Facebook, and that's how they decide like that they are gonna work together. There's literally match groups on Facebook, which is not a bad thing, and it works for a lot of people. Just for me personally, that sounds really scary. So I can't for the life of me remember when exactly I officially started working with Northwest Surrogacy Center, but I had probably 2 or 3 phone calls with my coordinator at the time. Her name was Mariah, and she tells you kind of start to finish what the process would look like, what it all entails. She asks a lot of questions about me, what my pregnancy and delivery was like with Aiden, and what I want my family planning to be like, because most surrogates are done having kids of their own and then they're a surrogate for another family, which is not necessarily the case for me. In an ideal world, we do want to have one more baby after the surrogate baby. But of course there's risks with any pregnancy and delivery, and if something happened that wouldn't allow us to have baby number 2 in the same way that we had baby number 1, then we are at peace with that. Of course, it's gonna be a challenge to begin with, but we think that we'll probably end up doing like a foster to adopt situation or something like that if it comes to that. So I had to go to San Francisco and meet with Mariah one-on-one. My son Aiden and I went, and that was his actual first like road trip car ride, and it took like we hit so much traffic on the Bay Bridge that it ended up taking like 2.5 hours. Good job, Bug. The meeting took about an hour and a half. We talked a lot again about my pregnancy and my delivery. At that point, I already actually had my medical records from Kaiser, which is my health insurance company, and that just speeds up the process a little bit. I didn't have to have them at that point, but if I didn't, it can take a little while for me to like sign the clearance stuff and then have the surrogacy agency reach out, and Kaiser can just take a longer time. And for those of you who know me personally, I am not always the most patient person in the world. I have learned a lot of patience over the years, but when I'm like very motivated and very passionate about something, I just like want to do it. I don't want to wait. So I already had all of my medical paperwork. And I do still have to provide like I have to like sign off saying that it's okay that they look into like my medical history for so many years. So they see how my pregnancy was, see if I was high risk, if I had things like preeclampsia, or anything like that, which I didn't. But they look into that, and then they look into how your actual delivery went. Did you have any complications? Which I did not, but they like to look into all of that stuff. So the next step was we had to get psychiatric evaluations. Both myself and my husband, Austin, had to go. And there is the woman that we worked with, she's out in Marin County in San Rafael. So we drove out there on a Saturday and we did our psych evals, and we both like have to sit down and talk with her, and she asks us questions. Really, they ask us a lot of the same questions about pregnancy and delivery. Why did I want to be a surrogate? What brought us here? Are we on the same page? How would we feel if we can't have more kids in like the traditional way? All of that stuff. And then I actually had to sit down and do like 150 question kind of a test. After we got cleared by the psychiatrist, we also had to do a home visit. So a woman from Berkeley actually drove out to our house, and she had to basically just make sure that our home is fit for a pregnant person to live in. And then she asked us all the same questions again. Why do I want to be a surrogate? Are we on the same page? What was my pregnancy and delivery like? She asked about Aiden because he was not here. And then she asked us even like, what kind of cleaning supplies do we use? Who does the household chores, and how do we decide who does that? So they really don't leave anything unasked. Like, they ask it all. So after we were cleared from the home visit, I think at that point, we were good to go. We did have to do a background check, both Austin and I, and all of that stuff with the surrogacy agency. But after that, we were like pretty much good to go with Northwest Surrogacy Center. And at that point, they started making me a profile. So they put a few pictures in there of my family and I, and just a little bit about me, what I'm looking for in intended parents right now and long term. And then I mentioned in my very first video that I was going to be a gestational surrogate. I mentioned that at no point do the intended parents, which is the family that I am going to be a surrogate for, they never know when their profile is being looked at by a surrogate. Their profile is already created with their case manager that they are working with, and it's just out there. I don't have a book that I look through, or, you know, a bunch of different profiles. I don't get to pick who I think is going to be best for me personally. My case manager did that. So Mariah goes through and she looks at my profile, she looks at other intended parents' profiles, and she decides who she thinks would be a best match for us, for each other. And so she brought me this profile for these intended parents. I read it. I totally knew that they were the ones that we wanted to match with. So at that point, they sent my intended parents my profile. They like approved me. And then we did a Zoom call, which is basically like a FaceTime call. They are international, otherwise we would like to do a sit-down face-to-face meeting, but that's what they call the match meeting, and that's when you officially decide if you guys are going to work together or not. There's absolutely no pressure from the case managers, and at that point, the case manager, her name was Sandra, she is the intended parents case manager. So after my intended parents and I were officially matched, my case manager, Mariah, was no longer my case manager. She passed me off to Sandra, who has been an incredible help, and she's always been so on top of things. So I feel really lucky that I have been able to be matched with someone who's so efficient. And then at that point, we started working with ORM, which is organ reproductive medicine. And I talked more about this in my very first video. So if you guys want a little bit more information, you can always go back and watch my very first video that I posted. But the fertility clinic and the surrogacy agency are separate. They are not the same. They work together. These two companies prefer to work together, but I had to go through an entire separate screening with ORM. That's totally separate from Northwest Surrogacy Center. So I had to do, send them my medical records and do all of that stuff. And then I actually had to fly up to Oregon. I live in California, so I had to fly up to Oregon, and I had to do an exam. I had to do a pelvic exam. And they also actually do a practice transfer at that point. So they fill your uterus with saline, and then the doctor was actually able to see exactly where he is going to implant the embryo on the actual transfer day. So I had to do all of that. He had to measure blood flow and check my uterine lining and all of that stuff, and everything was good. And on that same day, they did what's called a teaching. So they taught me about all the medications that I'm going to be taking when IVF starts. She showed me kind of a mock calendar and what that would look like. They have a fake muscle that almost looks like a foam cube, but harder. And so she did the injections first and showed me how, and then I actually did the injection on the fake muscle. So that was really cool to be able to do. And then after I was done with that, I flew home and everything, we were cleared for everything. Really what was hard for me was that we were waiting so long on my menstrual cycle start dates, because medication start is dependent on your cycle. And then also my intended parents and we had to make sure all legal was finished and completely finished. Our contracts were signed and sent, and our lawyers had them, and everything was good to go. We can't start IVF unless our contracts are finalized and the trust account is funded. So I really loved the lawyer that I had. She was based in Oakland. She is separate than the intended parents lawyer, and it was a really easy process. We got kind of a mock contract from Northwest Surrogacy Center that they use, and then they sent the referrals for my lawyer. She called me and we went over the contract. She made a couple changes, sent it to their lawyer who made a couple changes. We went over the changes one time. It took 15 minutes over the phone, and then I printed it. The final copy, I printed it and I had to sign it in front of a notary and get it notarized, and so did Austin. We had to do it at the same time. So those were kind of all of the pre-qualifying steps to be a surrogate. It is a long process. It's definitely not something that's I think I'm gonna be a surrogate, I'm just gonna go sign up. Definitely not. There's a lot of steps that you have to take before you are cleared to be a surrogate with an agency. Even if you are a surrogate who's doing independent and you don't have these clearance steps with an agency, you do still have to do the physical exam and those kinds of things with your fertility clinic. But if you are a first-time intended parent, if roles were reversed, I just think that I would be nervous. So another thing is they want to make sure that the surrogate isn't just in it for the money. Like the surrogate has to be in good financial standing before they can be a surrogate. Like it can't just be to get out of debt or whatever the case is. And state by state, this differs. But in California, you can be compensated for surrogacy, and not every state allows you to be compensated for surrogacy. So you have to be in good financial standing before you even start surrogacy. Those are kind of all of the pre-qualifying steps to be a surrogate. And then I have a coordinator that's assigned to me at ORM. Her name is Marissa. She set up my calendar for the next 2 months, and it just shows, it's literally a calendar, so it has the dates, and then it shows all of my medications that I'm supposed to be doing that day. So that's actually really helpful because I have that printed out, and then I also write in my personal like planner calendar the days and what I'm supposed to be taking, and then I just check it off. That's what I did yesterday, and that's what I'm doing today, just to like keep in my mind, like, okay, I know I took this, I know I took that. All I have to do is whatever. No, I never have to wonder, did I take that today? Shoot. So she sent over my calendar, and the pharmacist in New Jersey sent over all of my medications, and the final trust was funded that is separate from Northwest Surrogacy Center. Sandra did tell me that it is standard to have the trust account separate from like the actual surrogacy agency. So that was funded, and that's not just for my compensation amount. That's also, they were legally required in our contract to have a certain dollar amount in the trust account before we can even start IVF. That covers medical costs, like the cost of pregnancy and delivery, cost of my health insurance, because my health insurance company is not a surrogacy friendly agency, so they had to purchase an outside policy for me. They also purchase life insurance for me, so all of that has to be funded before we can even start. That way we know that we're not gonna like run out of money halfway through, which is also a really nice thing about working with an agency and not doing independent. And for anyone who is doing independent, I don't want to sway you. It really gives everyone peace of mind. There's not going to be any kind of foul play on either side. Everyone is held accountable by a third party, and everyone is, and this doesn't always go for even every agency. You have to be really careful about who you work with as a surrogate, because they're not always putting surrogate health and safety as like their first priority. So you have to be really careful about who you choose to work with. So that was how I had to qualify to be a surrogate, and now here we are. I'm on day 2 of IVF. I will video my injection later today, and I'll get this video ready and out in the next couple of days. So if you guys have any questions, please comment below. I want to know what you guys want to know. Because I feel like it's already been so long since like I was just even like thinking about surrogacy, and I'm trying to remember all the questions that I had, and that's kind of how I'm basing what to make videos about. But please let me know what you guys have questions about. Of course, there are certain personal things that I can't disclose legally, but I'm an open book, so please let me know if you have any questions about the process, the agency that I'm working with, the fertility clinic that I'm working with, whatever your questions are. If you just want to know how I'm feeling about being a surrogate, if you want to know how my family feels, or whatever the case is, just please let me know, and I want to make sure that I'm making videos that you guys want to see. So with that being said, I will let you guys go because all of my videos seem to be like 15-20 minutes long. So thank you so much for watching and investing the time in coming along this journey with me, and just thank you so much for all of the support. So give this video a thumbs up, if you liked it, and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to continue following me on my journey. All right, bye. Baby, you're actually here when I'm doing this one. Well, I did it at 5. You're just now getting off. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's like itchy because it burns a little. Other than my antibiotic, day 2 is done.
Running such a great race until then. Talk about getting to adversity. If any of the next 6 drivers can beat his time of 5:45, they'll be bumping their cup in qualified position.
I'm nervous about the bruise.
Huh?
I'm nervous about the bruise.
Oh, did you do it?
No. 1, 2, 3.
All right, our next driver is 27-year-old Texas native Williams. Now,
3, 4, 5.
fellas,
I did it slower that time and it hurt more.
She's been drifting now for about 2.5 years, doing really well. She's actually ranked number 4 out of 34 races on the Lone Star drift. Very positive outlook on last year. To her mother, Brittany says
Stop bleeding. Day 3. Done. Hi everybody, just checking in with you guys. So the video I made that you just watched was how I became a surrogate, how I qualified, I guess, and then the next couple of days of IVF. So today's day 4 and I'm going to film later on and just kind of check in with you guys probably next week. But thank you guys so much for coming along this journey with me and for showing me support, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to keep following my story and my journey and watch how the next 9-ish months go. Alright, bye guys.